Hi guys, my name is Rodney Hawkins. I am a CBS News journalist and I am honored to be here with you today. I am going to get into why I'm here and sharing my story and my journey and show you a little bit about what I have been doing. There's a two-part series that I've been asked to speak about, and so it is an honor and a pleasure to be able to share this with you. Thank you to Professor Tankersley for the opportunity to do this and the whole department. So I'll just get right into it. Who am I and why are you watching this video about me? So again, I'm a CBS News journalist. I've been with the company for about 12 years now. I started in Washington, D.C. Then I was in New York for about 6.5 years. And I actually am back here in Dallas, Texas, which is where I was born and raised. I grew up in Plano. So I went to Plano East. Shout out to any Plano East Panthers that are watching this right now. I love where I'm from. I love the fact that I'm back in Texas and being able to not only explore different stories and interests that I have here and being back home with family and friends, but also understanding my family history. It dates back here in Texas to 1842. Which I just learned about in the last 2 years. And so you'll see this process through the videos that I'm going to share with you of what I've gone through telling my story for CBS News and having the opportunity to do that on a national scale. So a little bit more about me and why I decided to become a journalist. It started actually out of tragedy. In 2002, my uncle was shot and killed by Dallas police officers. It was a terrible incident. It was completely devastating to my family and really rerouted a lot of who we were and who we thought we were, just in terms of not expecting this to happen. And when it did, I was pretty young, but it was very impressionable. And I saw the importance of media through that experience where my family didn't get the opportunity to really use their voice to tell the story, not only of my uncle, but the misidentification that happened and how that case was written off just as, a run of the mill. Now, as you see, we have social media. So there's so many different outlets and so many different things that families like mine have the opportunity to explore and get their voices out there. And so that really impacted me to become the journalist that I am today. And more so for me understanding how important it is to not only be fair, but to understand voices and how you put these pieces together. Whether you're writing something, whether you're doing a video broadcast, whether you are doing a PR push for something, you have to understand what is going on. Who are you missing? There's always one piece of the puzzle that you might not see right now, but just because of your perspective, but you got to go out there and explore it. And that's not the case for every single thing that you're going to work on in the media, particularly in news. But that's something that I always keep in mind and have kept me going in my journey in journalism. And so that has led me really to where I am, about 10 years full-time with CBS to this point. This was 2020 when I started this project. I know a lot of you have probably struggled through the pandemic for varying reasons. For me, I actually lost some family members, unfortunately, and going through the tragedy. It was caused by COVID in some cases, and others, they weren't able to go to the hospital. And just being in the midst of all this tragedy, then you have the killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, amongst many others, that created this uprising and all these political movements that have occurred within that year of the pandemic and when it started. During that period, it was really hard as a journalist, for me at least, to be able to process doing the work of telling all of these stories and not having it impact me. So I started turning internally and looking at not only what I could do to tell more stories about who I was, but who we were as Americans and getting to the root of things. And so what I did is I set out on this journey to go and find and explore my family history. It started from a professor from SMU. His name is Dr. Eric Bean. He's an epidemiologist. He actually challenged me. He has an adopted son that he was trying to uncover his roots and find possible relatives of his. And through that, he told me, you should go look into ancestry.com and find your DNA. And I went and I started doing that. And the more I dug, the more I found all of this incredible understanding. And let me backtrack a little bit. I had no interest in looking into my history originally. I thought it was beyond something that I needed to do and understand, because I felt I would obviously, as an African American with roots in Texas, I run into slavery. And that really scared me in terms of digging up all of these old pains that my family has, almost 150 years ago has left. But really, there's a lot of understanding that I'm starting to get for different things and different understandings of who my family is and why we're even in Texas. And it's actually been a resource for me to re-energize me in my career. So as I was exploring this history, my family, we on each side have about 200 to 150 acres in East Texas, Nacogdoches and Marshall. Right outside of Nacogdoches, very small town called Swift, which is where my family is from. And we actually went out to our property in the midst of the pandemic on a family vacation. We all got RVs because we thought it would be best for social distancing at the time in 2020. And when we did that, I started asking all these questions of all my cousins. Hey, what is this? Who and how did we get this land? Throwing all these questions out. And then my family members were like, well, hey, we actually have a cemetery that is in disarray, and we need to go and actually fix it and restore it. And so what you are about to watch is the restoration process and what happened after we found the cemetery.
For social justice is leading many Americans to try and better understand our nation's often painful past. It is also giving new life to community efforts to preserve Black cemeteries. I'm really excited about this story. Congress is considering legislation that would create a database of burial sites and provide funding to research and protect them. This could bolster cemetery restoration projects across the country, including one from CBS News producer Rodney Hawkins, who we know and love. He is embarking on a journey to reclaim his family legacy.
Deep in the piney woods of East Texas, beneath this roughly 200-year-old overgrown cemetery is my family history and a part of America's buried past.
I had to work the fields just like everybody else. I had to pick cotton.
If you didn't grow up during slavery, why were you picking cotton?
Well, my dad, that was part of what he did to make a living for the family.
Curlin Curl Hurd, or as I call her, Granny, was born in 1946 on a sharecropping farm. Her parents, Mitch and Ova Curl, raised 12 children in this tiny house in Nacogdoches, the oldest city in Texas, on their more than 100 acres. We still own most of the land.
What would you think your parents would think of us, their legacy, coming back and still appreciating this?
You know what? I think they would be so proud.
Not far from our property, we found our family cemetery in disarray.
It's tragic to see this cemetery in this state. As painful as it can be to uncover the past, it's important my ancestors, our ancestors, are honored.
It needs a lot of work.
My cousins, Rayford and Nell Coleman, want to make sure that happens.
I've been through chemo, radiation. In 2016, I had a stroke. Death has hit me right in the face. We all need to think about how we want our family to not forget us.
What goes through your mind thinking that possibly the legacy of this cemetery may have been forgotten?
That's why I'm talking to you, Rodney. You're the young generation, and my kids, we have to make them aware of the history before us.
That importance is not lost on me, particularly this year as a journalist, revisiting the 1921 race massacre and covering stories of heartbreaking loss. We had to reclaim this cemetery to not lose our history. The state officially registered Old Mount Gilead this summer with the help of Archie Rison.
It's ugly history, but it's necessary that we talk about it.
He's devoted his retirement to restoring historically Black cemeteries.
Why are you getting emotional?
I'm connecting myself to my past. A lot of people, a lot of black folks can't do that. And some, they tell me, my friends, they don't want to.
He says some want to forget the pain and shame of this country's past.
When slaves were freed, they knew the pains that our ancestors went through. And the biggest thing on their minds was survival.
Ryson introduced me to Perky Beisel,
We don't have marble like this in Texas.
a history professor at Stephen F. Austin University who works with the Texas Historical Commission to preserve cemeteries.
It's going to soak up the water.
Beisel and her students joined us to start the restoration, a year-long project.
This was well done.
She says this simple tombstone from my great-great-grandfather, Bill Curl, whose parents were enslaved, has great significance.
So this says more than at rest with all the symbols that are around it.
This is a true sign to anybody walking by. This is an important person.
That importance hit my granny.
We're just, well, a little emotional.
Every Memorial Day, they cleaned up the cemetery. But she hadn't been back here in over 40 years.
And you don't think that when you're growing up the value of what your parents are teaching you until now, you look back and it was wonderful.
Now that you're able to reflect and see what all they had
Yes.
and the little that they made
Yes.
out of nothing.
We're restoring this old cemetery
Thank you so much.
to show gratitude to those that came before us
Oh, and it has a name.
Oh my God.
as we unravel their history, waiting just beneath the surface. For CBS This Morning, Rodney Hawkins, Nacogdoches, Texas.
Wow. Well done, Rodney Hawkins. And to hear him say, or when he was asking his relative, why are you getting so emotional? I'm connecting myself to my past. And a lot of people, a lot of black people in particular, can't always do that.
Right. It's so important that he's doing this work, honoring our ancestors. And Rodney is a colleague and friend of all of ours.
Yes.
We're so proud of him.
We
What an
are.
incredible piece. I spoke to him last night. He said that he has leads on who the descendants of his ancestors' slave owners might be.
That's awesome.
We're living right now. So definitely more to come to this story, I'm sure.
First of all, well told.
Yes.
And second of all, I hope this inspires other people, Rodney, thanks to your story, to go look into their family's past as well.
I think it will. Look forward to seeing more of that. On today's CBS This Morning podcast, you could hear more of that by going to this podcast and hear from Rodney about his journey and what led him to share his family story.
So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did putting it together. It was but just by chance that we actually had the opportunity to do this project. This was something that you see was about 5 minutes, but there's hours worth of footage that we shot to get it to this point. What's really exciting is that we are now in the process of putting together a documentary because we have this tons and treasure trove of all of this footage that we know tells a wider story in terms of the experience that my family has been going through as we restore and then also recover some of our history and re-understand who we were. So one of the big things that really surprised me in this, as you can see, I did not realize that my grandmother picked cotton, which was beyond me. I, in fact, never really have seen cotton outside of probably the shirts and things that I wear. Times have changed, but it really put in perspective the importance of what they did for me to be here. And everything that they went through is really the reason why I even exist. And I'm able to even communicate and talk to you guys about this experience. And so it was so rewarding to be able to bring this not only to CBS, but also to my family. And now we just have this as an archive. It was so important for me to do this because for multiple reasons, I said this at the beginning, but this was an opportunity for me to be able to share what my process was in understanding what was happening in this country and really get to the soul and the heart of who I am and hopefully sharing something that I think is very relatable to many, many others in this country, which is how do you honor your ancestors? What do we even do with those cemeteries that we have loved ones that are in? not all of us have the opportunity to go visit. Not all of us live in the same cities, but we still honor them and think about them. And so what are we planning to do with that as the next generation? And exploring that and understanding the value of that history and this foundation of not denying what happened before, meaning, you know, my grandmother picked cotton. You can't deny that she did that. My ancestors lived in East Texas. And as you see in this next story that I'm about to share with you, we go way back to understanding how we even were able to get this amount of property. Again, this was about 150 acres that we still have in this part of my family. And I actually now own a piece of that. During this process, one of the things you don't see, which you can actually check out on CBS This Morning, I'll give a little plug, now CBS Mornings podcast, where I describe kind of the behind the scenes, a little bit what I'm sharing. I'm giving you more than I did on the podcast, but there I have a conversation with one of the anchors about all the things that we did to get to this point, to tell this story and what has happened after. This is some of also what we plan to get into for the documentary. But again, this has been such a rewarding time for my family, and we're gonna continue this journey. And so I hope as you watch this one, you'll see how we marry everything that we found in the cemetery to what we actually can find in the archives. And a huge thank you to Stephen F. Austin for everything that they have done so far. We're still working with them as we can continue to unravel all of this history. So take a look at this next part of the series, and I hope you enjoy it.
We're sharing an update to a very personal story from a member of our CBS News team. Last year, we told you about producer Rodney Hawkins and his family's efforts to restore their ancestral cemetery in East Texas. It's one of many projects across the country aimed at preserving historic Black burial sites. Rodney is also digging deeper into his family's past with the help of researchers at Stephen F. Austin State University. Their ambitious goal: find records of every enslaved person in Texas before and after they were freed in 1865. As Rodney shows us, it could help millions trace their ancestry.
Let us all pray together.
What started as a simple search for family history a year ago is becoming a multi-generational journey of self-discovery.
Good to see you.
Family members came from all over the country to complete the restoration of our nearly 2-century-old cemetery, Old Mount Gilead, like my great-uncle Billy Curl from Los Angeles.
This is the one that I was named after. Bill Curl, that's my namesake.
Bill Curl, a sharecropper, was my great-great-grandfather. Last year, we found his grave, bringing to life unexpected memories for my granny.
It was wonderful.
You had your grandma on there, and your grandma talked about who her parents were, and then she found her grandfather. We were then able to go and find him in the records.
Linda Reynolds and Kyle Ainsworth are digging deep into the archives at Stephen F. Austin State University.
There are 182,576 slaves in Texas in the 1860 census.
Wait, say that again.
Yeah. 182,576.
They're digitizing the records for each enslaved person registered as property in Texas. They call it the Lone Star Slavery Project. Why is it just now getting done?
Somebody has to be interested in wanting to do it. Where did my Curl family come from?
I have a feeling inside of these books, you're about to tell me a great story. We begin with the Bill of Sale from 1842. I do buy here sell and transfer $5,900 for 14 slaves, including Richard A. Negro boy, aged about 20 years. So if I'm thinking right, that Richard is my great-great-great-granddad.
Yeah.
I'm getting kind of emotional reading this, just because, I'm sorry. Despite this being a document that shows my ancestor as an asset, it still documents that he existed.
Your reaction is the whole reason to do the research.
They found many more priceless documents. We shared them with some of Richard's oldest living descendants, my granny, Curl and Hurd, great aunt, Ironell Maxey, and great uncle Billy Curl.
This is the first document.
Starting with the Bill of Sale.
There are two things. One is I want to cry, and I'm trying my best not to. And the second one is that's my slave name. I'd like to know what my African name is.
I don't know. I'm speechless.
I don't know. I have a history now. It's not even understandable.
These documents, including Richard's 1867 voter registration, help us understand how far we've come and how far we have yet to go.
I remember going to the polls with my father. He had to recite the alphabet before they would let him vote.
That's humiliating.
And he did it and paid $2 for his poll tax. I'll never forget that.
We're restoring the cemetery to honor our ancestors who endured for us to be here.
Oh, pretty.
My cousin, Sonny Tomlin Seitz, drove from Houston to thank them.
It's just special to be able to pay respect.
Right.
That's the thing, paying respect.
We don't have generational wealth. We're not millionaires. We're not wealthy people, but we have a home, and I call that our legacy.
There's much more work to do.
For all those who've shown up, we thank you.
And we pray we can continue to restore our legacy for generations to come. For CBS This Morning, Rodney Hawkins, Nacogdoches, Texas.
Wow.
Hairs are standing up on the back of my neck. I can understand Rodney's emotion when you think about your relatives who were assets.
Yeah.
But what I like is what Rodney said, it shows that they existed.
Yep.
And then you can connect all the dots when you see a beautiful family, by the way.
Yes, I thought the same thing.
Family.
Thought the same
and
thing.
see why Rodney is who he is. That was so beautifully done. This is part 2 of the story that he told.
Well, it's what Billy Curl said. I have a history now.
I have a history.
The other thing that struck me was 182,576 slaves in Texas in 1860.
And voting is an issue there, how things change and how they stay the same.
Yeah.
Who should
have to
vote?
recite the alphabet.
People matter, and it's a good example of that.
Okay, it's official. You have seen me cry on national TV. Was not expecting that to happen. I have many family and friends that asked me to watch the video. Oh my God, you got emotional. And I'm just like, okay, I'll text it to you and show you guys. So, but that was honest and a sincere moment. Was totally not expecting to get that book handed to me, to see my ancestor from 1842 who was brought over from Arkansas as a slave, to go from that to where I am now. It's just a testament to not only his strength, but generations in my family. So I'm so grateful to not only be able to have that history, but to be able to share it. And hopefully it is relatable to so many people with understanding their history and the value of what it means to not only be American, but to be rooted and have this foundation. And so I challenge all of you to look into your history. It's at times it can be ugly, but that's a part of not only who you are, who we are, but if you look into your history, it 9 times out of 10 will help someone else, even outside of your family, find out who they are. So I implore each and every one of you to get at Ancestry.com or wherever you want to start searching to do that. It has been so helpful and has really bolstered my understanding in so many different stories and connections I've been able to make, even outside of this. And my family's reaction, I mean, still to this day, we are going through so many understandings, whether it's I told you have bought land, but I have other family members now that are buying back some of our property. You saw some of my family from Tacoma, Washington to Los Angeles, to Atlanta. We're now planning to have a family reunion, and we haven't in almost, I would say, like 20 or 30 years. And so it's an amazing thing to be able to kickstart that. Then on top of that, we're hoping to start a nonprofit to keep Mount Gilead as a cemetery completely restored and cleaned up on a consistent basis. And then we're working on a documentary, which is really exciting. So stay tuned. If you want to learn more, please follow me on Instagram. My name is Rodney Hawkins, or on Twitter. I think it's Rodney CBS News. And you'll find out more about who and what I'm doing in this entire journey. And some of the takeaways that I just want to share with you guys. One is be authentic. A lot of times I think as journalists, and contrary to what I know I was taught, is it's this, we have to be unbiased, which I don't disagree with, but we also have to do it in a way to where we don't humanize ourselves. And I think what is really important now in this time, especially in this so vulnerable state, is for us to actually show the human experience. And I know many of you probably were impacted by the pandemic. Sharing those stories and understanding how everyone is going through this is equally as important. During the deep freeze, I saw so many great reports of reporters, correspondents, anyone in the news media sharing their experience of how they even can work through this huge freeze that happened almost a year ago in the midst of a pandemic. And so those sorts of things, I think viewers and readers are trying to get, is this understanding of, okay, is anyone else having this experience with me? And not to say that you have to put a viewpoint on it. I'm not preaching everyone go out and, restore their cemetery, but understanding that it's important to value your ancestors. And I think that's universal. And that, to me, is the wave of what I think journalism is going to continue to become. And I implore you to do that yourselves. Go out and tell those stories that may not seem like they're that interesting, but actually, and 9 times out of 10, they are. One of those experiences for me, my wife and I, we are obsessed with plants now. And we went out during the pandemic, like many Americans, and bought plants, house plants specifically. I don't know if any of you as college students would want that, but probably your parents and maybe the professors and administrators that are watching this. But I did a pitch and I said, hey guys, this is a phenomenon that's happening across the country. I know I'm experiencing it. We should do a story even though no one's really talking about it. And so I've been working on that story. And those are the sorts of things that I think will be interesting because we have social media, right? You're gonna know when a plane crashes, a hurricane's coming, a tornado, and there are very important reports, there are very important newscasts to do that. But really those stories that feel personable and relatable are the ones that I think are gonna capture more audiences and differentiate you from someone else. And I think on the flip side, I always tell anyone that's in PR or a publicist, hey, I wanna find a character rather than someone, and when we say character, find a person, rather than someone that is doing something, tell me about who they are and how they got on this journey. And that's what I hopefully have shared with you is my journey. This isn't all the details. I hope to do a few more stories of this, but this is just a little light on being authentic, being you, and that's okay. We all come from different places, have different perspectives, but we're all going through this human experience together. And I think that's the important thing that you have to do as journalists and as anyone in media is capture that audience through these relatable ways. So thank you again for your time and watching this. I hope you guys have a good end of your semester. And I really appreciate you, Professor Tankersley, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you guys. And hopefully the next time I speak to you, there will be another part of the series and the documentary will come out. But please reach out if you have any questions. My email is Hawkins. Again, it's hawkinsr@cbsnews.com. And you can find me on most social media platforms. Have a good one.